Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me. This is the morning market review, and it is Friday, the 23rd of February. My name is Russell Shaw. I'm a senior market specialist at FXCM. And before we get into the live stream, I'm going to just bring up our disclaimers, and we'll start off with the high risk investment warning, and just keep this on screen for a few moments. All right, and let's bring up our commentaries disclaimer. I'll leave this on screen for you to have a quick read through as well. Hey, Anna, good morning to you. Welcome. Sorry we started off a bit late. Had some issues just logging in, but all good now. All right, and let's go ahead, bring up the real rate. All right, so here's the real rate, and we're looking at it on a daily chart. Look, there is a gap up here. There is a gap up here. So there's gap up here potentially supporting dollar. Hey, Raj, good morning. Mia, welcome. But if we go through to our weekly chart, let's just go through to the weekly chart. And on the weekly chart, I just don't. I mean, there is a little bit of a stronger body here. I just don't think there's much more upside to the real rate. So this is what we will watch. And the first rate cut is scheduled for June. There's about I looked at it this morning. There's about a 60% chance for a rate cut in June. More than a 60% chance. And the idea here is the market seems to be okay with that. If that gets pushed back, I think there's going to be some pressure. But the market's just so strong at the moment. When I'm talking about the market, I'm talking about the stock market. It's just so strong at the moment, and the earnings have really just been fantastic this earnings season. And I just want to go ahead and bring up NVIDIA, just to show you what happened to NVIDIA yesterday. So, on the back of the slight increase in earnings and the slight increase in yield, and I think that the Fed is just cautious. I think that the yield there, so unemployment claims came in better than expected. The U.S. economy is running exceptionally hot at the moment. It's strong. But take a look here. We've got this pullback. So let me zoom in here. We've got this pullback, and then it just a massive gap higher. So you can see all the buying that took place in the extended section. And when the cash market opened, it just, boom, gaps open. Hey, Kim. And well, that's the dip in the uptrend that we're talking about. The difficulty here is, of course, it was the gap. It gapped up. The earnings and the results for NVIDIA were outstanding, and it's just going to be interesting to see how the technicals unfold, given how strong the earnings were, right? And what I'm referring to here is the weekly chart of NVIDIA, which is still overbought, but there is this massive. It's just changing this to logarithmic. Yeah, it's better. There is this just this massive movement up here. Okay, and is just absolutely incredible how strong the NVIDIA stock price is moving. And take a look, we're at let me move this across. We're at $785. There are forecasts out there to hit over $900. So as long as the cash flows are there, as long as and Anna sort of brought up the topic of cash flows earlier this week. Cash flows is what's used for valuation purposes. So as long as the cash is there, the valuation should be okay. Given the fact that I think that the interest rate in the market has peaked, I don't think we're going to see much of a higher yield. So this just is an incredible chart. Let's just take a look at NVIDIA on the hourly chart just to see how it looked yesterday from its open. Okay, and you can just see how the green 5-hour exponential moving average is above that orange 10-hour exponential moving average, and the stochastic is it's just beautiful. It's maintaining in that upper quintile, isn't it? And as long as we stay in that upper quintile, there's going to be a bid on the on NVIDIA. Let's just do some broader analysis here. Let's take a look at some of the indices. And what we'll do is we'll go to the NASDAQ first, just to see how the NASDAQ 100 is looking. And what we'll do is a top-down analysis here. So we'll start with the weekly chart. And all right, so we were tending towards this overbought condition. This is weekly. There was some red that came out last week, which showed some sort of moderation, but we haven't turned down. In fact, we've got this buying tail in the Nasdaq. Let's just take this red out as well. So let's just make some statements in terms of its technical position. Where is the price relative to its 30-week moving average? It's above the 30-week moving average. What is the slope of the 30-week moving average? The slope of the 30-week moving average is a positive gradient. Where is the RSI? The RSI is above 50, and that all suggests a bullishness. Let's go through to our daily chart to see where it is in terms of the zone analysis. Okay, just going to bring up the NASDAQ 100. Okay, here is the daily chart. I just want to zoom in. We're going to have, I think, a fair amount to say here. Let me get this camera out of the way. And I want to refer you guys to this. We drew this, I'm not sure when, a couple of live streams or a few live streams back. And we're looking for a potential dip in the uptrend in the NASDAQ, given the weekly positioning. And take a look at what we got here. So let's go ahead, let's bring in an arrow, and this is Wednesday's movement. Okay, so we had a pullback on Tuesday. Wednesday's movement, we have a bullish candle there. I think we can call it a hammer, which has got the buying tail. But in terms of the way we look at it, it's actually a reference candle, isn't it? It's got the lowest low in at least 3 candles, and then yesterday just such a strong movement up, and that completes the reference candle. So we've got this reference candle. Let's make this a bright green with a... Okay, so we've got this... I'll bring it to the front. That's better. So we've got this potential reference candle. Now, what's the deal with a reference candle? And this is where it gets really interesting, in that a swing has to start with a reference candle. Well, we've got the reference candle. Can I guarantee the swing? No, I can't guarantee the swing, because That's the difficulty with reference candles. All swings start with reference candles. Not all reference candles lead to swings. But now we've got the reference candle in. Okay, we've got those strong results by NVIDIA, which just generally seems to be kind of all eyes on artificial intelligence and any story that bolsters the artificial intelligence narrative. And you've got a synchronization of the daily chart with the weekly chart. And you can also see that the RSI now is back in positive territory. Let's go to the hourly chart and see if we can get any sort of timing signals on the hourly chart for NASDAQ. All right, here it comes. I'm just bringing that up. All right, let's share the tab. What can we make out here, guys? I think that it's a interesting chart. We've got the trigger 1 over here. That was back on Wednesday, really when the NVIDIA results sort of come out, right? We've got the trigger 2 over here. Now, obviously, after hours, it's very difficult you'd have to either take the risk and position early, or otherwise, try and get in sort of over here, okay, after the gap, right? And then the idea is we are in the upper quintile. See that? We're in the upper quintile. And the upper quintile here, well, as long as NASDAQ holds the upper quintile, there should be some sort of buoyancy, some sort of support. And the trend following indicators are in bullish formation, aren't they? The green hour is on top of the orange hour. What we can say, it's probably lost some momentum here. The angle and separation between the EMAs has closed up. So if we get a pullback in terms of the stochastic dropping down towards below 80, again, I'd be looking for something like this. I'd like to see if we can get some sort of dip in the uptrend. Okay, let's do the same sort of analysis with the S&P. Remember, the S&P was slightly different. The S&P was overbought. Let's take a look and see if it's still holding that overbought condition. All right, so we're going to go to the S&P 500 weekly chart here, and let's go ahead and bring that up. Okay. So this is a weekly overbought condition. It's something that we have to be concerned about. The NASDAQ, not quite as overbought as the S&P. What's interesting about the S&P, though, if you take a look at the top 6 constituents of the S&P 500, they are part of the Magnificent 6, right? So we'll just throw sort of Tesla out of that. But there is a strong technology component which is driving the S&P 500 as well. That is overbought. This makes for a very, in my opinion, complex type of analysis. The NASDAQ is looking okay. NVIDIA is looking overbought, but we had such terrific results there. How much momentum still left in that, we're going to have to monitor. But the S&P 500 is a beneficiary of that AR story, and you can see that it's overbought. However, where is the S&P relative to its 30-week exponential moving average? It's above it. What direction is the 30-week exponential moving average? Is pointing up. Okay, Where are we relative to 50 on the RSI? We're above 50, so we've got all this bullishness. Is just, I think, this heat over here is going to catch up with the S&P 500. The difficulty with a weekly overbought condition is, well, when does it correct? This week, next week, 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time? It takes each candle is a week, so it can take a few weeks for the overbought condition to effectively be normalized. Let's just go through to S&P 500's daily chart, see if there's anything to glean off of that. All right, so this is S&P 500. Again, we've drawn in this dip in the uptrend. And now we've actually got the reference candle. Can you see? So Wednesday is condition 1. Thursday is condition 2, 3. So now, do we have a swing on the S&P 500? If we do get that swing, how far can it travel? Is there a cap? Is there a ceiling on this? Why do I pose that question? We're overbought on the weekly. So it just seems to me that there is a difficulty here for us in terms of analyzing the market because of that weekly overbought condition. But the truth is that those NVIDIA results will blow out, right? So we can just see that the reference candle, the bullish reference candles in, we're not overbought on the daily. In fact, what we can do on the daily is see that the overbought condition is cleared. Okay, so the overbought condition is cleared on the daily. And what we can do is as follows. We can actually put in a trend line on the RSI. And you can see there's a trend line break here. So there is this impulse of momentum that is certainly noticeable, and we've got now the S&P 500 responding to that. Let's go down to the hourly and see how the S&P 500 is looking on the hourly chart. So here it comes. It looks very similar. It looks very similar to Nasdaq in that the momentum here seems to be tapering off. And again, just keep an eye on the stochastic. If that stochastic drops below 80, I'll just be looking to see if there's an opportunity to buy back in at a better price. Okay, so it's the dips in the uptrend. Okay, the dips in the uptrend. Yeah, we're going to look at dollar now, and then I want to take a look at euro US dollar because there was inflation data that came out, and I thought the inflation data out of Europe yesterday was quite good. Let's take a look at US dollar here. We'll just take a look at it on the weekly chart, and dollar, well, it's moved down into the lower quintile here, Raj, and it looks as if there is some sort of movement down in the US dollar. Well, that does tend to suggest a risk-on movement if we regard the US dollar as a safe haven, right? So there does seem to be a risk-on, but it's a very frothy risk-on environment. There is risk there. The issue here is that the froth is on the weekly chart. It's not on the daily chart. So the timing on the weekly chart, okay, yeah, this is the hourly. That's right, this is the hourly. But I'm talking about so we're seeing that the dollar hourly is coming down. Okay, so there does seem to be a risk-on environment. And the idea here is, okay, that there does seem to be a risk-on sentiment, But the point is, it's a frothy risk-on sentiment because the hourly is frothy. We've seen that overbought condition on the S&P 500. But the daily charts aren't overbought. So I think it's going to take weeks. I think it's going to take weeks for that overbought condition to work its way out of the S&P 500. So there's potentially still risk on opportunity until the frothiness on the weekly chart starts disseminating. So you can see the dollar chart here pushing to the downside as we start the day. And this is the longer the dollar stays in the lower quintile, well, I think that would be analogous with some sort of risk on type of profile. Let's just take a look at Euro US dollar. Okay, so I'm going to do a top down approach for Euro US dollar. And we'll start off here with the weekly. And well, this is interesting. There was a push up with the euro for this week, but it subsequently has been sold down. So the bulls lost control. The bulls lost control at the top of this week's high, and we're having a resistance at this 30-week exponential moving average. So where is the euro relative to the 30-week moving average? Well, it's on it. What direction is the 30-week exponential moving average? Well, it looks kind of sideways. Where are we with the RSI? Is looking pretty neutral at 50. Let's just take a look at the daily chart, see what the zones are telling us. So all right, so this is interesting. Let's get rid of all these drawings. We moved into zone 1, but really this is a gravestone doji. So there is a big selling tail. There's a big selling tail here on euro, and I think that's because the inflation numbers came in. I felt they were quite good. They were moderating. The fact of the matter is, because the US dollar seems to be moving down, there seems to be some sort of bid on the euro. And if there is some sort of bid on the euro and we are in zone 1, is there going to be some sort of opportunity perhaps on the hourly chart? Let's just take a look at the hourly chart. Okay, so this is interesting on the hourly chart. There does seem to be some bullish triggers to the upside on euro. So here's trigger 1. Here's trigger 2. And we're actually moving towards that upper quintile. So it does seem that the risk on sentiment, although the weekly chart seems quite neutral, so I'm not sure the primary trend is actually really helping us out here, but it does seem on a lower time frame that the risk on sentiment, whilst the dollar is getting sold off, there does seem to be some sort of bullish impetus on euro US dollar. Kim just asking us to have a quick look at cable. Let's just bring up GBP USD. We'll do a top-down analysis here, Kim. All right, so where are we relative to the 30-week moving average? We are above it. What is the direction of the 30-week moving average? The 30-week moving average is moving northeast. Where is the RSI? RSI is above 50. We don't quite have the reference candle in here. Let's take a look at what's happening with cable on the daily chart. All right, let's just get rid of the drawings. Okay, so, well, it's sitting in neutral. There does seem to be a slight bullish. There does seem to be a slight bullish bias to it on the weekly chart. The daily RSI is above 50, so if it stays above 50, we could be moving into zone 1. Let's just go down to the hourly chart here and take a look. The trend on cable is not a terrific trend. It's not really explosive. It seems that the stock markets are more explosive than the currency markets at the moment. So here's the, we do have trigger 1. We do have trigger 2. Okay, and we do have cable in the upper quintile. So my view is if it holds the upper quintile, then we potentially have some sort of swing here. I think it would be largely driven by a dollar coming down, and the dollar coming down perhaps suggesting a risk-on environment. If that's the case, then a bid on cable might manifest. Just got to keep an eye on this stochastic. You can take a look that we're getting a gravestone doji. So it does look as if there might be some sort of resistance coming in here, Kim, but it all stems on if we hold the upper quintile or not. Okay, so cable, slight bullishness on the weekly, neutral on the daily, so there's no synchronization there. So once we lose that synchronization, it's going to immediately we're going to lose momentum. Okay, so we want that synchronization. It's to me just that lack of synchronization is a bit of a worry. All right. Any other questions? Are there any questions? Otherwise, we would conclude. At this stage. Yeah, if you found this useful, and only if you found it useful, go ahead and click on that rocket, guys. Otherwise, let's wrap up here, and I'll wish you a good day, good weekend, and we shall do it all again on Monday morning.